Steve Keim joined the Pat McAfee Show yesterday and gave some interesting insight into Kyler Murray's contract negotiations, the offseason as a whole, and Hard Knocks, what he thinks about it. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. I'm going to break it all down right now.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Alex Clancy here, Locked On Cardinals. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. What I call this podcast now is this is what I think is really happening here podcast. And not we're going to sugarcoat things. We're going to kind of spin these in a way because it's the offseason, so we need to have, different storylines. If I think something is happening, I'm going to continue to talk about it. And Steve Keim just strengthened my position with his interview on the Pat McAfee Show. I'm going to break down a couple quotes that he said that I tweeted out as they were happening. And I'm going to give you this is what it looks like, and this is what I think he really means. I'm going to do 3 segments. This is going to be a jam-packed Steve Keim-centric show. And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt at least half of the time, discussing what at least I think he means by 3 of the main quotes that he said during the Pat McAfee Show. You can also check me out on Locked On NFL Thursday with Tyler Rowland of Locked On Titans today. Man, this is going to be fun. This is what is actually happening podcast. I think that's going to be the nickname as opposed to, any other one. This is just this is what's happening. It's not opinion. It's look at what's right in front of your damn face. And this is the world in which we live when covering, watching, and for you being fans of the Arizona Cardinals. I feel like I owe it to you to talk to you like adults and talk to you like this is what's happening right here. This is what's happening. And it's not always great, but at least it's honest. And I feel like that's a way better approach to take than others. So Steve Keim went on the Pat McAfee Show. Pat McAfee's great. It's a great listen. It's a great watch. It's wild. It's insane. It's Dan Patrick, I don't know, at a frat. And I don't mean that in a bad way at all. I think it's fantastic. So Steve Keim goes on, and always, he's the very, personable buddy guy. He's the cool guy, whatever. So interview-wise, aesthetically is a great interview until you actually start to listen to what he says. Okay, so you actually start to listen to what he says more than just on the face value. And I'm going to start with one of the first quotes that he talked about. He talked about Michael Bidwell. He was asked about Michael Bidwell. Pat McAfee said, pretty much something. He asked him something to the effect of, you've got a pretty sweet gig there. You got your contract extension. You've got an owner that goes for it. And this is the quote that Steve Keim said. He goes, "It's great to have that kind of passion in a guy who comes into the office every day," talking about Michael Bidwell. Okay, so on the surface, from Steve Keim's perspective, sure, I guess that makes all the sense in the world for a couple of reasons. One, he pretty much has a job in perpetuity. We've learned that even during the doldrums of his tenure, there was never really a chance that he was going to get fired, even though it looked like maybe he could have when they fired Steve Wilkes. If he wasn't going to get fired after 2018, still riding the coattails from the 2015 NFC Championship appearance, he wasn't going to get fired. With the 2 second halves of the last 2 seasons, he gets a contract extension because the win total went up. And I say on this podcast a lot, an 11-win season, not all are created equal. And last year was an absolute embarrassment towards the second half of last season. And you could say that just because DeAndre Hopkins went out, that's why they lost all those games. That's fine. That's 100% your opinion. And you can think whatever you want. Absolutely. I just vehemently disagree. And Steve Keim saying that, the passion that Michael Bidwell has when he comes into play directly correlated to him makes all the sense in the world because he has a job forever and he just got an extension through 2027 while leading a team that he is severely undermanned and underdrafted for, yet he still gets an extension. Fantastic. So for him, that's his truth, and I completely believe that he believes that, and that's fine. What that really says is It doesn't matter what happens. Period. Steve Keim's going to have a job. That's what that means to me. What it also means is, let's see how I want to put this. When Steve Keim thinks that Michael Bidwell comes in, wants to go for it, has the passion, why are you letting all of these staples of your organization walk? Why are you not paying free agents like other organizations are? Oh, because you have to adhere to the salary cap and not everybody else does? Explain that to me. Explain that to me. The quote, again, Steve Keim talking about Michael Bidwell, it's great to have that kind of passion in a guy who comes to the office every day. It's awesome when they're winning. You see them everywhere. And then Steve Keim goes into hibernation. Michael Bidwell goes into hibernation when things aren't going well. So what's actually happening is not what Steve Keim is saying. He may think that, and he may live that, because he is one of the very few people in that organization who, although probably is dispensable, is on paper indispensable, because he is unfireable in the eyes of Michael Bidwell. So when he said that, 100%, he believes that that's his truth. That perception is reality, whatever people say. But what's really happening is he is completely delusional to the fact that Michael Bidwell wants to put an organization together and pay for it in an effort to win a Super Bowl. That's what's actually happening. And the distinction couldn't be more clear to me. I'm not sure why others don't, but that's 100% fine. Look at the 11 win, be blind to what happened to the second half of the season. That's fine. I can defend maybe getting an extension after this season, but getting them an extension through 2027 after what happened the last two halves of the last two seasons is unconscionable to me. And Michael Bidwell was the one that signed off on it. So you call it passion, Steve Keim. You're set. What about everybody else? That's what's really happening. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Coming up next, there's a couple quotes about Kyler that were very eye-opening. And if these things don't come true after what Steve Keim said in quote form on the Pat McAfee Show yesterday, we're going to enter another depth of the definition of insanity. And I'm here for it one way or the other. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. That's next. First, Built Bar, something that is never the definition. Is there the definition of happiness? Maybe that's what Built Bar is. We've been talking about the puffs, okay? That's what we've been talking about. We've been talking about Built Bars. We've been talking about the puffs. Now we're talking about the granola, okay? Built granola bars are here. They come in 3 unbelievable flavors: chocolate peanut butter, chocolate coconut, and white chocolate berry. Want to try all 3? You can get a mixed box at Built.com right now. These are so different. So Built Bars and Puffs are different. Consistency is a little different. The flavors are different. But this one, the tertiary option at Built.com, is different as well. It's the perfect combination of crunch and chewiness. But just like bars and puffs, these babies are packed with protein and covered in 100% real chocolate. 150 calories, 15 grams of protein, only 4 grams of sugar. Built granola bars will change your world. Okay, they've cracked the code to better granola, because you can get the granola, but there's sugar in granola. These things here, man, 4 grams of sugar covered in chocolate. Give me a break. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right. Second segment, Locked On Cardinals. Thank you to everybody making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. Please go like the YouTube channel, subscribe, bump those numbers up. Thank you to everybody who's hanging out. Thank you very much. If this is your first listen of Locked On Cardinals, thank you. Why not make tomorrow your second? If this is your third listen this week, why not make tomorrow your fourth? I'm here for you every day. Little scheduling note. I'm going to go back to my old programming ways of premiering on YouTube at 10 a.m. Pacific every day and not doing the night before at 5 p.m. It's a little clunky, and I think doing everything in the same day, it just benefits the synchronicity of the show. So that's starting today. So you'll see it, when you open this baby up today. So I'm going to save the biggest quote, my biggest oh my God moment about the Pat McAfee interview with Steve Keim for the third segment. This segment is going to be focusing on Kyler Murray. Okay. There's a couple things that he said about Kyler Murray. One, debunked a portion of a New York Times interview that people are running with and have been running with, which blows my mind. It pisses me off, but that's whatever people want to say. This is what Steve Keim first said about Kyler Murray when Pat McAfee asked him about Kyler Murray's contract extension. He said, quote, "We know he's under contract for another year and the fifth-year option. We know that he's our future," end quote. Okay, so this is the most quotable quote of the whole interview. What does this mean? What did Steve Keim mean when he said that? Okay, again, like last segment, what I'm going to say is what he meant and what I think he meant, what I think it really means. What he meant was, as of today, which was yesterday, May 25th, 2022, Kyler Murray is our future. That's what I think that quote meant. And there are, some nuances to that. What if they can't come to a conclusion by the end of by the end of training camp? What if? Is he still their future then? He did talk about, he's like, listen, the last contracts, it gets done between, July and August, or June and August, and we're not there yet, so he still has that benefit of the doubt. He still has the benefit of the doubt that the June 1 cuts haven't happened yet. The massaging of the salary cap hasn't happened yet. Things like that. He has that to his advantage still, so we can still say, it's not time yet. Cool. Understood. No hard knocks on that. If Kyler Murray doesn't show up at mandatory OTAs because he doesn't have a deal, if Kyler Murray doesn't start week 1 because he doesn't have a deal yet, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm giving a situation. I find it hard to believe that Steve Keim and Michael Bidwell still think that Kyler Murray is their future, because they haven't shown at all that he's their future. Sure, traded for Hollywood Brown. Sure, drafted Trey McBride. This is a 100% overcorrection by Steve Keim, like I've talked about ad nauseum, from what he did in the first round of the last 2 years, drafting Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons. When you could have drafted an offensive line, you could have drafted CeeDee Lamb, you could have done a whole lot of things to help Kyler Murray then. This is the overcorrection for that. So you can mask it, sugarcoat it, but the What's Really Going On podcast is telling you that Steve Keim is overcorrecting from the 2020 and 2021 mistakes in the first round. Not that the players he drafted were mistakes, but that he should have been doing things to appease Kyler Murray, not directly, but hey, I drafted this quarterback number 1 overall. Maybe we should protect him. Maybe we should get him weapons, things like that. This is the overcorrection for that. He's only their future until he's not. So what I think is really going on is that is a perfect thing to say. The cool dude at the bar, sitting with his buddies, getting interviewed, that whole thing, sure, pass the test. Politics aside, he is only their future until he's not. He's only their future until he's a pain in the rear end to them enough to where they can get 3 first-round picks for him and he's gone. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying that's an option. And if that were to happen, if he says that Kyler Murray, number 1 overall pick of the 2019 NFL draft, that's added and infused some excitement and talent from the quarterback position that this organization has never seen, ever, and then he trades them, the wrath of me, if that happens, I don't even know. We only use 10% of our brains. That's going to be the 11% I'm going to have to go to dig deep to try and understand what in the wide world of hell just happened. So I'm not saying that's going to happen by any stretch. I'm not predicting it to happen. I'm not. But when Steve Keim says Kyler Murray's our future, I think the quotation marks or the parentheses should be right now. That's all. I mean, it's a great quote. Kyler's our future. That's great. It's great. It is. And I believe Steve Keim as of May 25th, 2022. I believe him. I don't think he's full of crap. I don't think any of that. I think he believes it and I think he means it. because he does. But that is a fluid situation, because if he was truly their future, or if he is truly their future, he could have shown it earlier. He could have done it now. Oh, wait, but things don't get done until June. Who cares? A.J. Brown just got traded for a first-round pick. Wide receivers are saying, nope, I'm not going to play. Tyreek Hill just got traded for, what, 2 first-round picks in a second, something like that? The NFL is now the NBA, so the old rules don't pertain to the new NFL. So if he wants to pay him, if Michael Bidwell is passionate and wants to go for it, pay your damn quarterback today. What are you waiting for? The old rules of the NFL? Doesn't make any sense. What I think he said, or what I think he meant, is what he said, and I do believe he means what he said, that Kyler is the future. He also said they've got him under contract this year and the 5th-year option. So that leads the out to saying, well, I don't have to pay him now. Why would I pay him now? If he's your future, you pay him now, Steve. And then the other thing, before I move on, Dan Taylor, this one's for you, baby. When talking about Kyler Murray, he said, quote, he's a football junkie. He loves watching film with the players, end quote. This is from the GM, not from an article. This is from the GM, not from a one blip of one interview or one article written on Kyler Murray about how he doesn't like to watch film 24/7. Take that for data. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Coming up next, the biggest eye-opening quote that Steve Keim said is under the spotlight next, and I'll tell you what. This is the stuff that makes me nervous. This is the stuff that's brought to you by the hashtag DOI definition of insanity. I'm going to bring that up next and dive deep into what in the sweet mother of hell Steve Keim thinks that he was getting away with by saying this. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, next. Final segment here, Locked On Cardinals. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I know everybody's not on Twitter. I got this weird stat. I think it's like 3% of America's on, something dumb like that, is on Twitter, like very minuscule amounts. Tell your friends about Locked On Cardinals. I'm here every day giving you what I think is really happening here and not sugarcoating for easy listening. And I mean, sometimes people need it. Sometimes people need a little shake like, hey, this is what's really happening. Don't continue to have Stockholm syndrome of the Arizona Cardinals, making everything look like it's okay when there are some severe deficiencies in what the hell is really going on and what should be happening. And we're kind of in a holding pattern right now with Kyler Murray's contract and the offseason. This roster is still not complete. And we're May 26th. So we are March, April, May. For my math, we're about 60, 70 days into free agency. So for those that said, oh, it's Keim time. Oh, it's time. Free agencies. Oh, it's still early. Waiting. Kyler Murray under microscope with the quotes from last segment. The first segment was Michael Bidwell and Steve Keim saying what he said about Michael Bidwell, about the passion. It's good to see him in the office every day. That's great until it's not, when we don't see a full product on the field come week 1 because Steve Keim and Michael Bidwell haven't done their jobs properly. This segment here, this was the last one. So for those that missed it, go check it out. Watch the Pat McAfee interview with Steve Keim yesterday. Steve Keim's he seems like a cool dude, you know, down to earth, good for a quote. Like, he's kind of Bruce Arians without the cigar in a front office GM form. He's kind of Cliff Kingsbury as a GM. It's kind of Cliffy as a GM. Cliffy and Stevie, one and the same, one GM, one head coach. Go with me here. This is the quote. Pat McAfee asked him, not quoting this, paraphrasing, something about what can take this team to the next level. And Steve, middle name Keim, said this, quote, I think it's putting the second half of the season together and not playing with complacency, end quote. I think it's putting the second half of the season together and not playing with complacency. What do I think that Steve Keim meant? And what does he believe about what he just said? This is a slight at Cliff Kingsbury. This is a slight at Kyler Murray, in my opinion. What do I think he means on the surface? This is a Steve Keim bona fide 100% absolute horse manure answer. Steve Keim happily asking things or answering things when platitudes are involved, answering things when potential things happening down the road. When asked about things that already happened and why they already happened and what needs to change, he gives Pillsbury, Doughboy, Marshmallow, Fluff answers. And this one, when I saw him say it, I'm like, what? That's what you're going with, Stevie baby? That's what you're going with. I think it's putting the second half of the season together and not playing with complacency. Thank you, Steve. You could have said scoring more points than the other team. That's really what's going to take us to the next level. Didn't take any sort of personal blame for what happened. He put the roster together. He's done this. And he just backs off. Oh, you can't play with complacency. That is not him. That is on the coach and on the quarterback. That's what I take as I'm transitioning into what that really means is Steve Keim just say, you know what? Ain't me. You know what? We scored more points than the other team. We'd win more games. It is a 100% Pillsbury, Doughboy, Marshmallow, Fluff answer, and he just gets away with it. Definition of insanity, Stockholm Syndrome, whatever you want to say. He doesn't have to answer tough questions because he doesn't like this. This is what he does. He goes into politician mode. They asked him about the draft, and he completely pivoted into free agency instead. Or like, what about your terrible draft record, Steve? This is where we are. And I will leave you this with the quote he said about Hard Knocks in season. He said, quote, "I think it's great for the brand. I think it's great telling the story for our players. I don't think it ever hurts to put an extra camera in somebody's face to get the best out of them." End quote. Be careful what you wish for, Steve. Because this could expose the Arizona Cardinals from you to the head coach if the Cardinals do not perform well down the stretch in November and into December. I hope that's not the case. And I'm going to give a disclaimer because there is something you can look it up for yourself. I'm not going to give it any sort of run, but there was, there's been like an interview with a player from a different organization that seemed to be kind of in a personal attack on that player. This is not a personal attack whatsoever. Anytime I question Steve Keim's ability, it's as an employee and not as a person. There is a very, very clear distinction that needs to be understood with that. This is what I'm looking at. This is not a personal attack on him as a person. This is him as the general manager of the Arizona Cardinals, and that needs to be understood. Please. Because I would never go after somebody personally. Like, that's ridiculous. I don't know him personally. So how can I make assumptions about him as a person? I'm looking at what has happened, why I think it has happened, and what I think can be done to change it as an employee, not as a person. That needs to be understood. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, man. We have fun here. We're just ramping up. We're just ramping up. There's going to be so much more to talk about. Hopefully the Kyler Murray contract extension comes in the second that, the old rules say it can. And then we can move the hell on from that and see what the future of this organization is going to look like with number one taking snaps for the foreseeable and long-time future, we hope. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. As I mentioned, make Locked On NFL your second listen. Again, you can check me out there today with Tyler Rowland from Locked On Titans. National NFL experts. That's like, it's some of the best personalities on the Locked On NFL podcast platform of the Locked On Podcast Network. Follow Locked On NFL every day on the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. I'll talk to you tomorrow.